Kentucky Governor Matt Bevin spoke with West Virginia radio host Tom Rotten. It's a funny name. And he spoke about what led to the white supremacist protests in Charlottesville. And he has probably the dumbest theory I've ever heard.
We're talking with Governor Bevin of Kentucky. You recently signed some legislation that allowed the Bible to be taught in public schools in Kentucky once again, as it was in all over America for a number of years until the 60s or 70s. And, now that school's starting back, could you kind of clarify what that bill does? And we're talking about learning from history and education. I think it's an important bill.
Sure. I mean, it is interesting. When you go back a couple hundred years, in most instances, the only textbooks that were actually in our public schools were the Bible. I mean, that was pretty much it. There may have been a few other augmented materials, but really no books. They didn't have textbooks. And so to that end, to pretend, again, to scrub history and pretend that that wasn't reality, I think is a dangerous precedent. And it's interesting, the more we've removed any sense of spiritual obligation or moral higher authority or absolute right and wrong, the more we've removed things that are biblically taught from society, the more we've seen the kind of mayhem that we were just discussing.
Every part of that was hilariously dumb. Okay, so he talks about how, we removed the Bible from school, and, back then it was the only textbook used. And he says that as if it's like something good and something to aspire to, and like he can't believe we got away from that. Like we got away from our roots. And now it's not only the Bible that people use as a textbook. Crazy! Yeah, back then people also shit in outhouses. And, the elites were wearing powdered wigs. Not sure they nailed everything. They couldn't get modern plumbing, and they couldn't figure out powdered wigs look like shit. So, they had textbooks in the schools. Yeah, people also died of cholera at age 17. Like, what the fuck are you... Wasn't it great back in the day when the only textbook we had was the Bible? Like, he really said that and didn't think, wow, this sounds really stupid. That's a horrible thing. That's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. And then he says... They also say, well, we gotta learn from history. This is our history. We gotta learn from history. That's why you gotta have the textbook in there. Okay, the Bible is not a textbook. It's not history. The Bible is a collection of myths and fables put together way back in the day when science didn't even exist. They're like, yeah, we gotta use this in classes. And if you want to go down that path and say, but it's just a part of history, that's why we should teach it. That's why we should have it in school. The Quran is part of history too. So is the Bhagavad Gita. You want to teach that in class as if it's factual? Now, I'd imagine when I say that, you go, no, come on, creeping Sharia. Oh my God, you're going to teach the Quran in class? Creeping Sharia. But this is creeping Sharia also. This is creeping Christian Sharia. And they still don't get it. Secular nation, separation of church and state, First Amendment of the Constitution. And these guys also proclaim to be the most staunch constitutionalists in the country. And then they say, let's teach the Bible everywhere. Then you're not a staunch constitutionalist. You're the opposite. You want to make this country the Christian Saudi Arabia, the country was specifically set up to not be a theocracy. And then the final point, when he tries to link it to what's going on in Charlottesville. The more we've gotten away from teaching the Bible in school, the more things like this have happened. I mean, that's so dumb. You want to talk about a causation-correlation problem. Back in the day, we didn't have vaccines. You can make the case, well, back before we had vaccines, we didn't seem to have all these problems. There's no connection between the two things. Oh my God, Bible in school, and now we have social ills. Well, we didn't have social ills back then either? Really? Pretty sure we did. Pretty sure we had more back then. And then he acts like, if we just put the Bible back in school, this will never happen. The KKK, which was made up a pretty strong contingent on one of the two sides in Charlottesville. We remember the pictures there with the literal KKK guys, people doing the Nazi salute and shit. The KKK, you go talk to them, they'll say, we're a Christian organization. So he's saying, the answer to what's happening in Charlottesville is teaching the Bible in class. Yes. Well, one of the two sides specifically talks about how they're Christian. By the way, the counterposers, I'm sure many of them would say I'm Christian. They just have a much more happy interpretation of Christianity. So you have probably the majority of people on both sides are Christian. And you're saying, I got it. If we had Christianity, people wouldn't go down this path. But if most people on both sides are likely Christian, then what the fuck are you talking about? That's not true at all. Imagine being that stupid, where any problem, anything you look at, your gut reaction is, oh, the Bible would fix this. Like, no. And you know damn well if you take out Bible and put in Quran, take out God and put in Allah, even though it means the same thing. You bring this up in a different context, and everybody say, look at this fucking extremist over here. But it is extremism in the context of Christianity, too. And Matt Bevin